The silent observation. The night sky over Earth was as quiet as ever, yet something was lurking in its vast expanse. A fleet of alien ships, cloaked and silent, hovered just beyond the reach of human radar. They moved with precision, their technology far surpassing anything humanity had ever imagined. They had been watching Earth for centuries, silently observing its growth, its wars, its development. They had seen the rise and fall of great empires, the dawn of technological advances, and the steady march of humanity toward the stars. To them, Earth was just another planet, full of potential, but far from their concerns. Yet, for all their advanced technology, the aliens had missed something crucial. They had underestimated humans. They believed that humanity was still mired in chaos, too distracted by their own internal struggles to notice the shadows in the sky. They believed humans were still bound to their small, fragile world, unaware of the greater universe that stretched beyond. But the aliens were wrong. Deep beneath the icy continent of Antarctica, buried in a forgotten military base, humans had already begun to watch the Watchers. The base was a relic, built during the Cold War and long since abandoned by most, but not forgotten by those who knew its true purpose. Hidden away from the public eye, it had become the center of a new project, Project Echo. The purpose of this project was simple: monitor the skies for any signs of alien activity. Commander Rafik, the leader of the operation, had spent years building a team of experts from various fields: engineers, scientists, and former military personnel, all working together in secrecy to decode any signals coming from space. For years, they had monitored the radio frequencies, scanning for anything out of the ordinary. They had found nothing. Until now. It was a subtle discovery at first, a faint signal hidden in the static of the radio waves. It was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It was encrypted, coded in a way that defied human understanding. But Rafik was not one to give up easily. He gathered his team, and together they worked tirelessly, piecing together the fragments of the signal. After weeks of analysis, they realized that what they had intercepted was not a random transmission. It was a message. The message was clear. The aliens were watching. Rafik's mind raced as he processed the implications of the discovery. For years, humans had looked up to the stars with wonder, dreaming of what lay beyond. But the reality was far different. The stars were not just silent witnesses to humanity's journey. They were filled with eyes, watching and waiting. The aliens had been observing Earth for far longer than anyone could have imagined. They knew of Earth's wars, its revolutions, and even the smallest details of its political struggles. Yet they had never made contact. But now, humans had noticed them, and that changed everything. Rafik quickly assembled a small team to investigate further. They began running diagnostics, scanning for more signals, anything that might give them a deeper understanding of who was out there. Days turned into weeks as the team worked relentlessly, uncovering more encrypted messages, and then patterns within the messages themselves. They learned that the aliens were part of a vast interstellar council, a group that had been quietly monitoring various civilizations across the galaxy. They were not interested in Earth's development, at least not yet. But there was something that made humanity different. They were unpredictable. They were dangerous. The more the team learned, the more they realized that humanity was not as weak as the aliens had believed. They were not just observers of their own planet. They were on the cusp of becoming something more, something that could stand against the rest of the galaxy. As Rafik sat in the control room, looking at the glowing screens that displayed the data they had gathered, he knew that this was just the beginning. The aliens had watched them in secret for so long, but now the tables had turned. Humans were watching them back. They were learning from their every move, studying their technology, and understanding their strategies. The alien ships, cloaked in the darkness of space, were no longer unseen. They had become the observed. The team's work was far from over. They had only scratched the surface, but what they had uncovered had the potential to change everything. The aliens had made a mistake, They had underestimated humanity. They had believed that Earth was insignificant, that humans were too primitive to pose any threat. But now, they would learn otherwise. The silence that had existed between the stars was about to be broken. Rafik leaned back in his chair, staring out at the dark expanse of space that stretched out beyond Earth. For the first time, he felt a sense of hope. Humanity had always looked to the stars, dreaming of what was out there. But now, they had a purpose. They were no longer just observers. They were becoming players in a much larger game. And the aliens, those who had watched in secret for so long, would soon realize that they were not the only ones with power. The battle for the stars had just begun. Far away from Earth, in a hidden part of space that most star charts did not show, a group of alien observers floated silently inside a dark and advanced surveillance station. A station built from smooth black metal that absorbed light, making it almost invisible even to advanced sensors. And inside that shadowed place, the beings known as the Tar-XL watched Earth with sharp, glowing eyes and recorded everything humans did. Every rocket launch, every signal from satellites, every military move, and even the way humans interacted with each other in their cities, towns, and distant lands. The Tar-XL believed that humans were not ready to meet the rest of the galaxy, not because they were too weak, but because they were too unpredictable, too emotional, and too clever for their own good, and this made them dangerous in a way that frightened even the oldest races of the Galactic Council. For decades, the Tar-XL had been the Council's silent eyes, reporting on young species like humans, silently guiding whether they should be contacted, avoided, or destroyed. And Earth had remained under observe-only status. No interference, no communication, no warning. But unknown to the Tar-XL, the humans had already discovered something they should not have. And they had begun building their own system of silent watchers, not with giant space stations or fleets of ships, but with small stealth drones, camouflaged satellites, and deep space listening posts hidden in cold parts of the solar system, so carefully placed that not even the Tar-XL had noticed the eyes watching them in return. Back on Earth, Commander Rafik stood inside a secret facility deep beneath the surface of Greenland, where snowstorms outside howled endlessly, but never disturbed the activity going on inside the underground base, and where a room full of human experts worked around the clock, tracking strange movements in orbit, collecting heat patterns, and matching them to energy readings that did not belong to any known satellite or space station. What started as a few suspicious signals had turned into a full discovery. Humans had found the alien watchers hiding behind Earth's moon. The mood inside the base had shifted completely from curiosity to focused purpose. No one laughed anymore. No one joked like they used to when they first joined the project. Now they worked silently, almost like soldiers in a battlefield, except their war was invisible and quiet, a war of minds, of signals, and hidden threats in the dark. Dr. Hanna, one of the base's lead analysts, had spent days decoding the pattern of the alien data pulses. She believed that the Tar-XL were not just watching but also interfering, subtly. There were signs of electronic distortions near military communications, strange malfunctions during satellite launches, and even unexplained failures during Earth's deep space missions. It was as if someone was guiding human technology to stay limited, like a parent stopping a child from touching something dangerous. Commander Rafik called a high-level meeting. On the screen behind him, a three-dimensional model of the Earth's orbit showed moving blips, some green, marked as human-made satellites, and some red, the ones that had no identification and no registration in any known global database. "These are not natural," Rafik said calmly but firmly, his eyes scanning the room filled with specialists. "They are machines. They are watching us. But now we are watching them too." The room remained silent as the weight of his words settled. One by one, the analysts nodded. It was real. They had proof. And now they had a choice to make: expose the aliens or stay silent and learn more. But Rafik had already made his decision. "We don't tell the public." "Not yet," he said. "We need more data. We need to understand their goals. And most of all, we need to let them know that we are not blind." The team began working on what they called counter-signal echo, a message that would be sent not in words, but in behavior, a test. They would allow the aliens to interfere with a new space probe, but just before the failure point, humans would override it using an encrypted backup system, something no human agency had ever used before, just to let the watchers know that humans were aware. The plan worked. From their hidden station near the edge of the moon, the Tar XL watched as the human probe began to fail, just like dozens before it. But then something unexpected happened. The failure reversed, the systems recovered, and the probe broadcast a strange signal, a pulse not meant for Earth, but clearly directed into space. The Tar XL commander narrowed his glowing eyes. "They know," he whispered in his native tongue. They were not supposed to know. For the first time in many cycles, the Tar XL did not feel in control. The game had shifted, and Earth was no longer just the observed. It was now a player in the shadows. The humans, once seen as primitive and loud, had done something no other species had managed before. They had turned the silent watchers into the watched. And that meant one thing: humanity was not ready to be controlled. They were ready to fight back. The Tar XL command center buzzed with activity as the unexpected transmission reverberated through their sensors. It was a signal unlike anything they had anticipated, a clear, calculated pulse that echoed deep into space. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the Tar XL commander slammed his clawed fist onto the control panel. His dark eyes glowed with a sharp, piercing light as he turned to his team of observers. "What is it?" he demanded. One of the younger analysts hesitated before answering. It's a human countermeasure, sir. The Earthlings. They found us." A low hum filled the room as the Tar XL senior officers exchanged glances. They had been watching Earth from the shadows for decades, observing with precision, ensuring that their influence remained undetected. They had manipulated, influenced, and carefully kept the humans in check with their invisible presence. But now, the humans had seen through their games. They had done something that no species had ever done before. They had fought back without ever making a sound. The commander's face twisted into an expression of disgust. "Impossible. How could they have done this? We are the masters of stealth. No one has ever discovered our presence." But deep down, even the commander knew the truth. The humans had done something extraordinary. They had seen beyond the obvious, deciphering the faintest of signals and tracing them back to their hidden watchers. This was not something the Tar XL had prepared for. They had underestimated humanity in the most dangerous way. Back on Earth, Rafik and his team had just received their first successful confirmation that their plan had worked. The probe, which had been rigged to send an encrypted signal to the Tar XL, had successfully broadcast the message. But now, the team faced a different kind of uncertainty. What would happen next? They knew the aliens were capable of retaliating, but humanity had no choice but to push forward. The game had changed, and it was no longer about hiding in the shadows. It was about taking a stand. Rafik stood in front of his team, his eyes narrowed with determination. "We've done it," he said quietly, almost to himself. "They know we're watching them now. But we can't stop here. We have to keep the pressure on. If they think we're weak, they'll act. And when they do, we'll be ready." The atmosphere in the room shifted from one of cautious optimism to focused resolve. Rafik's words resonated with everyone present. The quiet resistance had already begun. Now, the true fight was about to begin. The first step was to establish their presence in the most subtle way possible, by exploiting the very systems the Tar XL had used to monitor them. Rafik's team quickly set to work, carefully analyzing the alien signal they had intercepted. It wasn't just a random pulse. It was a directed message, one that could have been meant for their hidden stations on Earth's moon. But humans were far more skilled at analyzing patterns than the Tar XL had realized. By studying the frequency of the signal, they managed to map out the precise location of the alien surveillance network. They had uncovered the first piece of the puzzle. Dr. Hanna, who had been working tirelessly with the analysts, finally spoke up. We need to send them a message they will understand. But it has to be something that shows them we're not afraid. Rafik turned to her. What are you suggesting? An invitation, she said, her voice calm but carrying an edge of defiance. We'll send them a message, one they won't ignore. We'll do it in a way they least expect. The plan was simple yet daring. Instead of attacking, humans would offer a truce, but with a condition. The message would imply that humanity had unlocked the secrets to the Tar-Xl's stealth technology, and they would share their knowledge, but only if the aliens came to Earth. It was a message of power, of humanity's unexpected strength. The Tar-Xl had thought they were watching from the shadows, but now the humans were inviting them into the light. Meanwhile, the Tar-Xl watched their command center's display screens with growing unease. Despite their best efforts, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were no longer in control. They had been the silent observers for so long, but now, the humans were turning the tables. The command center buzzed with heated discussions as the Tar-Xl debated their next move. Some argued for a direct confrontation, an immediate strike against Earth to silence them once and for all. Others wanted to wait, to see if this was a bluff. But deep down, every officer knew the truth. The humans had crossed the line, and now they were no longer the prey. They had become the hunters. On Earth, Rafik and his team finalized the message, which would be sent via a newly launched satellite disguised as just another human communication device. The words they crafted were simple, but their impact would be profound. The message, encoded to mimic the Tar-Xl's own encrypted signals, read, "We see you. We know your secrets. Come to Earth. We'll talk. But don't think we're helpless." The moment it was sent, Rafik felt a cold sense of finality. There was no turning back now. The aliens had been watching them in secret, but they had unknowingly provoked a response. The humans had not only broken their silence, they had sent a challenge, one that would echo through the stars. The Tar-Xl commanders, watching from their hidden station in the void, stared at the transmission. Their first instinct was to destroy it, to erase the message before it could spread. But as they looked closer, they realized something far more troubling. The humans weren't just sending a message. They were sending a warning. They had been watching for far too long, and now the balance had shifted. Humans, the once primitive species, had just made their first move. And in doing so, they had declared they were no longer the hunted. They had become the hunters. The tension inside the Tar-Xl command center was palpable. For the first time in centuries, the mighty alien race, known for their mastery of stealth and their secretive observation of countless species, felt a sharp and unfamiliar sensation. Fear. They had been careful, meticulous, and calculated in their approach, but the humans had done something they had never anticipated. They had not only discovered their presence, they had boldly challenged them. The commander, a large figure with dark, reflective eyes, stood at the center of the control room. His fingers, long and tipped with claw-like nails, drummed restlessly against the cold surface of the desk as he scanned the data streaming in from their hidden observatories. The message sent by humanity was clear, but it was also far more than just a threat. It was an invitation, and with it, a challenge. "They think they can control us," the commander growled, his voice like a low growl. "They think we'll come to them like frightened creatures in the night. No, we'll show them why they should fear us." His eyes flicked to the panel showing the decrypted message sent by the humans. They had read it dozens of times by now. The message was simple, direct, and undeniably bold. "We see you. We know your secrets. Come to Earth. We'll talk. But don't think we're helpless." But the commander knew this wasn't just a threat. The humans were cunning. They were trying to manipulate them, bait them into a confrontation. They wanted to see how the Tar-Xol would respond, and there was only one way to find out. They would test the humans. "We'll send a response," the commander said sharply. "We'll let them believe they're in control. Let them think they have us on the defensive." As his orders were relayed, a different part of the galaxy hummed with activity. Far beyond the Tar-Xol command center, on Earth's moon, Rafik and his team worked tirelessly, analyzing every shred of data they could find. They had expected some form of retaliation, but they didn't know when or how it would come. Their actions had already set something in motion, something that could not be stopped. Rafik glanced over his shoulder at the techs working around him. The data they were pulling from the alien signals was overwhelming, but there was no time to waste. He had hoped for the best, but now the worst seemed inevitable. The Tar-Xol would retaliate. They had to prepare for what was coming. "We need to stay one step ahead," Rafik muttered to himself, but it was clear that everyone in the room heard him. He turned back to face them. "We don't know how they'll strike, but we know they'll come. They won't just walk into our trap. They'll be waiting for us to make a mistake." His voice held steady, but inside, his heart was racing. They had triggered something big. They had pushed the aliens into a corner, and now they would have to fight for their survival. But the humans were prepared, and in this game of cosmic cat and mouse, they had the advantage. For the first time, the Tar-Xol were the ones who didn't know what would happen next. Back in the Tar-Xol command center, plans were unfolding quickly. Despite their bravado, there was no ignoring the fact that they were facing an unpredictable opponent. The humans had already proven that they could outthink the Tar-Xol, and that was something the aliens had not encountered before. In all of their years of watching different species, the humans had been among the least impressive in their eyes. They were primitive, weak in comparison to many of the civilizations the Tar-Xol had encountered. But now, they had shown a kind of intelligence, a type of cunning, that had completely eluded them. "There's something about them," one of the senior officers admitted, his voice tight with apprehension. "They've learned more than we thought. They've adapted faster than we expected." The commander didn't respond immediately. His thoughts were elsewhere, calculating the possible risks. If they underestimated the humans now, they'd risked losing their advantage. If the humans had indeed cracked their hidden methods of stealth and had figured out how to track them, then no place in the galaxy would be safe. It was a reality they couldn't ignore. In an attempt to regain the upper hand, the Tar-Xol made their move. The first strike came not in the form of an attack, but through a subtle twist of the rules. The aliens decided to send an encrypted signal of their own, one designed to confuse and unsettle the humans. The message would be unclear, ambiguous, designed to provoke doubt. The Tar-Xol hoped that by making their intentions unclear, they could destabilize the humans and force them into an unpredictable reaction. It was a clever strategy, but it required patience, and patience was something the commander had in abundance. "We'll keep them on edge," the commander instructed. "Let them wonder. Let them think they've beaten us at our own game, but we won't let them win. Not yet." As the message was sent, Rafik's team received a strange signal. It was nothing like they had expected, but it was unmistakable. The Tar-Xol had sent something, an answer, but it was cryptic. Rafik's pulse quickened as he analyzed the transmission, trying to make sense of it. What were the Tar-Xol trying to communicate? Was it a threat, or was it an invitation? The ambiguity of the message only deepened the mystery. It was clear that the Tar-Xol were playing a dangerous game, one that would test not just humanity's intellect, but their very survival. Rafik stood up, his face set with determination. "This isn't over," he said to his team, his voice firm. "We've started something we can't stop, but we will not back down. We're going to finish this. We'll find out what they're really planning, and we'll be ready for whatever comes next." As the lights in the control room dimmed, the air thick with uncertainty, both sides knew one thing for certain. The next move would define the future. The Tar XL had underestimated humans before, and now they were about to learn that humanity wasn't just watching. They were ready to fight back. The atmosphere in the Tar XL command center had grown tense. The alien race, who had once thought of humans as little more than primitive creatures, now found themselves on the edge of an unprecedented confrontation. Their plans to keep the humans in the dark, to manipulate them from the shadows, had failed. The humans had not only outsmarted them, they had done so in ways the Tar XL could not have predicted. Now, the galaxy held its breath as the final move was about to be made. The commander stood in front of a massive screen, watching the encrypted messages coming in from Earth. The human response to their last transmission was clear. They had decoded the message. But more than that, they had set their own trap. The humans weren't afraid anymore. They weren't backing down, and that realization hit the commander harder than anything else. For the first time in his long life, he felt a growing sense of respect for the humans. They were clever, unpredictable, and relentless, and they were proving something that no one, not even the most seasoned of Tar XL officers, had ever dared to believe: that humanity had the potential to change the course of the galaxy. "We've underestimated them," the commander muttered to himself. He couldn't help but feel a mix of frustration and awe. How had the humans gotten so far so fast? What had driven them to act with such boldness? Meanwhile, Rafik stood at the helm of his operations center, staring at the screen in front of him. His mind raced as he processed the data. The Tar XL had become desperate, sending cryptic messages and trying to unsettle them. But now it was clear. The final game was beginning. And this time, Rafik was not going to let the aliens dictate the terms. "We need to be ready," Rafik said firmly to his team. "The Tar XL will come, but this time, we control the battlefield. We know what they're capable of, and we know their weaknesses." The tension in the room was palpable. Everyone was on edge, knowing that the next move could determine the fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy. Rafik had always believed in the strength of humanity. He had seen the resilience and the resourcefulness that people could display when pushed to the edge. But this situation was unlike anything he had ever faced. The stakes were higher than ever before. Outside, the warships of the Tar XL were silently positioning themselves in orbit around Earth. Their advanced technology allowed them to move undetected, hidden in the void of space. But this time, the humans were ready. Rafik's team had been tracking their movements for weeks, and they knew exactly where the Tar XL were hiding. As the countdown to the confrontation began, Rafik turned to the team leader, a woman named Sarah, who had been monitoring the enemy fleet's movements. "We have one shot at this," Rafik said, his voice low. "We can't afford to make a mistake. If they fire first, we'll be forced to fight back. But we need to strike before they do." Sarah nodded, her face serious. "We've got their ships pinpointed. They won't see it coming." Rafik's eyes were cold with determination. "Then let's make sure they don't." Meanwhile, on the Tar XL flagship, the commander was giving his final orders. They had waited long enough. It was time to make their move, to strike decisively and crush any hopes the humans had of turning the tables. The entire galaxy would know the might of the Tar XL once and for all. "We will show them that no one can stand against us," the commander growled, his voice trembling with anger. "Prepare the fleet. Prepare to strike." But even as the Tar XL made their preparations, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. There was a nagging sense of unease, a quiet realization that this battle wouldn't unfold the way they expected. They had underestimated humanity once before, and now they might be making that mistake again. At that moment, Rafik made the call. The order was given, and within seconds, the human fleet sprang to life. Their warships, once scattered and hidden in the vast reaches of space, now moved in perfect unison. Each ship was outfitted with the latest technology, designed to outmaneuver the Tar XL and exploit the alien race's weaknesses. The Tar XL fleet was positioned around Earth, ready to make their move. But what they didn't know was that the humans had already figured out their patterns, their methods, and the humans had a trick up their sleeve that the Tar Exul hadn't expected. The first shot came not from the human ships, but from a hidden satellite, a piece of technology the Tar Exul had overlooked. The powerful pulse of energy shot out, striking the first Tar Exul warship and sending it into a spinning descent toward Earth's atmosphere. The alien fleet scrambled, confused by the sudden attack, but it was too late. The humans had already taken control of the situation. The battle was intense. Explosions lit up the night sky, and the shockwaves from the blasts rattled the very ground beneath their feet. The Tar Exul, normally so precise and deadly, were caught off guard. They had never encountered anything like this before. The humans were no longer the underdogs. They were now the hunters, and the Tar Exul were the prey. On Earth, Rafik and his team watched the battle unfold in real time. They had expected the Tar Exul to strike first, but they had anticipated the aliens' moves. Every step, every action, had been calculated. The humans had not only broken the Tar Exul's stealth, but they had used the aliens' own tactics against them. As the final Tar Exul warship was destroyed, the commander knew that they had lost. They had underestimated the humans. Again, they had thought that their secretive ways, their superior technology, would give them the upper hand. But humanity had done what no other species had done before. They had turned the tide, and now the Tar Exul were forced to retreat, their pride shattered. The humans had claimed victory, but the galaxy was forever changed.